Hello once again from Jerry Richardson Indoor Stadium. I'm Jim Noble along with Wofford head coach Dwight Perry, and this is Inside Wofford Basketball, sponsored by Yokohama. Well, believe it or not, we are at the halfway point of the Southern Conference schedule. It seems like we just started practicing a couple of weeks ago, but that's not true. Wofford standing at 5-4 in the conference standings. Dwight, you've had a chance to go through the league once. You've seen everybody. Everybody's seen you. The ups and downs of Southern Conference basketball. It's been on full display, not only for the Terriers, but I think maybe everybody in the league so far.
Yeah, 100%. I know we talked about this before league play started, but our league is really good. It's one of the best mid-major leagues in the country. Top to bottom, the depth of the league, the talent, the coaching, right? I mean, all that poses a challenge every single game, home or away. And I think you see, obviously, that on full display the first 9 games of conference play.
Wofford's had some really nice road wins, gone on the road and destroyed Furman. You beat ETSU. Road wins are a valuable currency in this league. And then certainly you have to play each and every night. I think you take the top 8 teams in the league. Right now, you almost throw a blanket over them. Everybody can beat everybody on every given night. I know that's a cliche, but it's been borne out by facts so far.
100%. And that's something, again, we talked about before conference play started. We said, obviously, conference play, especially in the SoCon, right, the intensity goes to another level. It's ratcheted up another notch, and you have to embrace that. And I think overall we have, right? We haven't been perfect. There's definitely games we would like to have back. That's not how basketball, right, or sports in general work. But again, as we look forward to the second half of conference play, like you already mentioned, knowing what teams want to do, us trying to lock in and key on their tendencies a little more. Obviously, they'll do the same for us, but feel really good and confident about what we have moving forward these next 9 games, starting obviously specifically on Saturday.
All right, when we come back, we'll recap the last 4 games since we last spoke to you. We will also look ahead to that stretch Dwight's talking about. Some tough road challenges, especially for the Terriers. And we'll talk about analytics. Is he a full buy-in? Is he a partial buy-in? What tools do the Terriers have to do their job? It's all ahead here on Inside Wofford Basketball.
It doesn't matter if you're 8 years old or 80 years old, your body is your strongest tool. Spartanburg Regional Sports Medicine Institute is here to push you to the next level. With 2 convenient locations, our doctors can diagnose, treat, and heal at our North Grove Medical Park and Star Center offices to get you back in the gym, in the game, and to the next level. We never quit because you never quit. For more information, call 560-BONE.
All right, let's start off our look back at the last 4 games with a visit by the Mercer Bears. You know, Mercer came in dangerous pieces, brought some guys in from the outside. Ahmad Robinson's a really dangerous player, and you guys shut them down, held them to 29% shooting from the floor, fairly even first half, then you blow it open in the second for a 20-point win. Were you happiest with your defensive effort above all in that Mercer game?
For sure. I thought, again, that was our 3rd game in 6 days that week. We obviously had played Furman and Chattanooga prior to that on Monday and Wednesday, with obviously the snowstorm pushing our Furman game from Saturday the previous week to Monday. So we talked about it. We were really intentional. The fact that was going to be our 3rd game in 6 days. Obviously, Mercer's schedule was normal, so that was their 2nd game. It was going to be a mental toughness day. And, it wasn't about it being the prettiest. It wasn't about it being the sexiest. We were going to have to find some strength from within. And I thought, again, our guys did a great job. You mentioned in the first half, it was nip and tuck back and forth. But I thought the difference, right, was in the second half. I thought when Kyler dove on that loose ball, he gave the team and just a crowd and the crowd, everyone, a jolt of energy. And I thought we did a really good job from that point of just using that as fuel, and I thought we really buckled down, especially in the second half, on their whole team, but obviously with a guy like Ahmad Robinson, who's really dynamic and very dangerous. I thought as a team, right, we did a great job on limiting his touches. Getting him in foul trouble definitely helped, but was really proud of the overall group effort on both sides, but especially defensively. One of the best, if not the best, defensive performances of the year.
One of the guys who often leads that defensive effort is Justin Bailey. He's often guarding the best offensive player on the floor for the other team. His offense can be streaky. He tied a career high with 18 against Mercer. The offense comes and goes sometimes, but when Justin's bringing the defense first, what does that do for the rest of the guys?
It's huge. I mean, Justin's defense is arguably the best in the Southern Conference. There's a lot of really good players on both ends of the floor, but I think Justin's arguably the best SoCon perimeter defender in our league, and him bringing that mentality and that intensity, it only elevates our program on both sides of the ball. Justin's shooting the ball really well. I think he's shooting 50% in Southern Conference play right now. And so when you have a guy that can defend at the level at which Justin does and shoot the ball as efficiently as he is, it only makes you a better team.
Coming off a 20-point win over Mercer, the next task at hand, the Citadel coming here to Jerry Richardson Indoor Stadium. And this was kind of a wacky game. You're up 33-9 in the first half. You're playing so well. There's almost bound to be a letdown. And the Citadel came back in it. Those guys fight hard. Ed Conroy and his team, they never give up. Kind of a, is it a glass half empty or glass full thing? It was a good win. You never, look askew at a win in this conference. But what were some of the lessons that the team maybe learned in that second half?
100%. I mean, I think you touched on, right, both sides of that coin, right? Number one, we said it after the game and we said it the next day. You can never take winning for granted. Anywhere, but especially in this league, home or away, no matter who you're playing, every win you have to treat right as gold, because it is. And there's cases in our league where teams have been up by 20-plus points and lost. So you can't take it for granted. On the other side of that coin, though, we definitely had a lapse and letdown, especially on the defensive side of the ball and taking care of the ball in the second half. And that's something that, we have to continue to get better at, because as we all know, in those situations where you still win, the next time that happens, you may not be as fortunate. Mm-hmm. And so, again, you give credit to Citadel. Obviously, they did a really good job of continuing to fight. But I thought our overall intensity and our focus really dropped. But, again, credit our guys for still finding a way to make winning plays at the end of that game.
I think Jackson Civils tied a career high in that game with 19. And we've talked about the bench unit led by Civ now coming off the bench. And he kind of brings some solidity when you bring in, Kamari Holmes and Luke Flynn, both freshmen. Those guys, their role, is it very specific? Do they know when they're getting into the game? Or is it fairly fluid depending on your feel of the game and how it's going?
Yeah, I think for all of our guys, the most important thing is that everyone's focused and pouring in on winning. And I think when you do that, right, you always have to be engaged, whether you're starting, whether you're coming off the bench, right? As we know in the game and in basketball in the season, there's a lot of things that occur. There's injuries, there's foul trouble, right? There's ups and downs, ebbs and flows. So the most important thing for all of our guys is whenever you're going in the game, what can you do to impact winning on offense? What can you do to impact winning on defense? What can you do to impact winning with all the intangibles we talk about of playing hard and playing tough, being connected? And I think when all of our guys have that approach, like for the most part we have, you see a really good team. And that's something that, again, game in and game out, you have to fight for and you have to focus and be conscious of every single time, because, again, as much as people want to talk about schemes, when having that approach and you have a group of guys that have that approach, that's when you're a really good team.
Yeah, I've never been around a winning team that guys really complained about minutes. It's all about winning, and that makes everybody feel pretty good about their roles. And Wofford was on a pretty good roll, no pun intended, heading down to Sanford, the number one team in the league at the time. Really, really tough at home. Did they do anything to surprise you? I know you guys worked really hard anticipating some things from Sanford in practice the days before, but they came out and played a little bit more of a half-court game, it seemed like. What did you think of the game, which really kind of got away from you guys late in the first half and into the second?
Yeah, I think we just didn't play with the intensity and the fire that I think has given us success in the past. And again, like I spoke on earlier, that's more valuable and way more important than any scheme. And so, yeah, there was nothing they did that surprised us. They obviously are a really good team. They're really talented. They're old. I think all of their starting lineup is all transfers. And so, obviously, that's beneficial for them. But I think all in all, we did not do a really good job of coming out with the right approach and the right mentality that we have in the past that's given us that edge, that's given us success. And I think, again, when you're playing any team, any good team, and any good team on the road, if you're not all the way locked in and ready to roll, obviously that team will make you pay, and Sanford did that.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the margin of error in this league. Everything's so tight that if one team is going to come out kind of up here, intensity-wise, and another team, for whatever reason, comes down just a little bit below that, that's a difference maker in this league. And maybe we saw some of that in the last home game against VMI. They came out, shot the lights out earlier. Was that more about Wofford defense than anything else when the Keydets came in here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to give credit to VMI. Obviously, they're a really good team, right? They've won 4 or 5 games. They've beaten, right, a couple good teams here recently in that stretch. They've played a lot of good teams close, like they played Greensboro close. So, again, right, people can look at certain opponents and say how good they've been based off the past. But, as a program and anyone that follows the Southern Conference, you just have to view these opponents as who they are in the present. And VMI is a really good team. They're well coached. So, yeah, I mean, they made a lot of shots in the first half especially, and so you give them credit. But we definitely, in my opinion, and when we watched it and we talked about it as a team, there was a level of intensity in the first half that was definitely lacking. Credit our guys. I mean, again, the way the second half started, we didn't change anything up schematically. Again, I think, as a coach and as a player, it's frustrating when obviously you can change things or not change things, right, so to speak. In our situation, we didn't change anything, and we had what feels like immediate success right after the start of the second half. And so on one hand, that's great that we were able to, flip the script, and we were able to obviously have that mind shift and that mentality change. On the other hand, right, as we all know, if we can do that at halftime, there's no reason why we can't expect to do that at the start of the game. And again, that's something that obviously is unfortunate that it happened, but moving forward, that's something that as a whole program we have to be cognizant of, and we have to do a better job of, like we did especially early in Southern Conference play, of coming out the gates ready to roll, because as we all know, all these games are hard, and the better you are, the better and the more of the best shots you're going to get from the opponent. And that's something that unfortunately we're learning the hard way, but with 9 more games to go, if we can continue to learn off, right, those mistakes and learn from those situations and games, I think we'll be better served in the long run.
That's a good way to launch into our final segment. When we come back, some pretty tough road assignments coming up for the Terriers, but when they come back here at home, the students will be back on campus, so hopefully we'll have a continued great support here, and we will talk a little analytics next here on Inside Wofford Basketball, brought to you by Yokohama.
Ingles only sells USDA choice and prime cuts of meat. Maybe it's time to reward yourself. Our butchers cut all our meat fresh in the store every day. Grass-fed, organic, you name it. Not only that, we'll even cut it to order just the way you like it. And we grind meat fresh in the store multiple times a day. It's all in the bag. That's the best meat in town for the best folks in town. Ingles, low prices. Love the savings.
Welcome back. All right, the Terriers hit the road for 2 of their next 3. They're not easy ones either. At UNCG, then back here home against Chattanooga, and then at Mercer. Let's start off with the Greensboro game. It seems like 7 years ago that we opened up the season here, New Year's Day, and a loss right at the buzzer. Wofford had a chance to win. Shot didn't go in, but it was a nip-and-tuck game. 2 very evenly matched teams. The second time around, Dwight, how does that make a difference for the coaching staff in terms of preparation?
I think it makes it easier, but at the same time, right, both staffs, I'm sure, will make some tweaks to their game plan. But at the end of the day, right, when you're dealing with really good teams, and Greensboro's a really good team, right, at the end, there's not going to be a whole lot of surprises. And at the end of the day, it's all about who's going to execute the game plan, who's going to be physically and mentally tough enough to really execute that game plan, And when it doesn't go well at some point, because it won't for either team, who's going to be mentally tough enough to stay the course and stay locked in over 40 minutes? Those are usually the teams that end up winning these games.
In fact, you've got Greensboro, a loss by 2. Then you hit your home against Chattanooga, a loss by 2 in overtime against them up there. Does the team that lost the game have any kind of mental edge the second time around, or am I blowing this out of proportion?
Yeah, not if you're a competitor, because if you win, you should want to win again, and you should want to build off that. If you lose, you should obviously be fired up and ready to play and do your best to win. So at the end of the day, I don't make too much of, right, if you lose by a close game that you have this motivation, or if you win, you're complacent. I think at the end of the day, if you're focused on the right things and you're trying to play to a standard, which we are, the outcome of the previous game has very little bearing on the mentality you should bring into the next game.
Yeah, and we'll talk about atmosphere, especially for that Chattanooga game now that the students are back. We've had a couple of pockets with some really good crowds, but we really need your support out here. That it could be a difference maker in this league. We see that when we go on the road. We see it here at home, so we definitely urge you to come out. Let's wind this up with a talk about analytics, and that's a very all-encompassing term this year. You guys have a lot of tools. We all talk about video review and breaking down tape, but there are things like Synergy now that you use, player tracking devices. Yep. How much do you and your staff, how much are you able to buy in and utilize that information? What information is key? Where do you stand on all that these days?
I'm a big believer of analytics. I think it's just like anything else. It's a great, useful tool, I think. But just like any tool, it can't be, right, the end-all, be-all. I think there's still a human element attached to when you're really good. I think you have to have some feel. You have to have some intuition. But I think overall it's really good. I think, when you're talking about player tracking data of understanding, right, the workload that these guys go through, not just in games but in practices, and the wear and tear that has on their bodies, I think that's really useful information. I think synergy of understanding, right, where guys get shots and how they're getting shots and the type of shots they're getting and what parts of the floor and how efficient they shoot those shots, I think that's very important. I think when you're talking about KenPom and you're talking about overall team efficiencies, right, just because a team scores a lot of points if they're playing in a lot of possessions, they may not be as efficient offensively as a team that maybe scores slightly less than them but plays way fewer possessions. And so I think a lot of the analytics, especially nowadays, are able to help keep things in context. And that's the most important thing, is having that context. That matters. But then again, like I said, still being able to understand within the context of your team and how you play and what you think is best, that sometimes is going to be in line with analytics and sometimes it's not. But that's where you have to trust your gut, and as a staff, we have to be on the same page, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that your team is ready to play hard, play tough, play together, and be locked in on whatever game plan we have for that particular game.
Is there one number or one stat that over the course of your career you've been like, wow, that's a really overlooked number, or wow, that's something we can really utilize or try to lift? Anything jump into your mind when there's that, when all that information is available to you?
Yeah, wins and losses.
I like it.
When you win, right, that's a great stat. When you lose, it's not. So at the end of the day, the most important stat is the win versus the loss.
I saw that answer coming about halfway through my question, but
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Sometimes we get all too into these numbers, and what matters out on the floor is the big thing. Always appreciate the time. Safe travels up the road. Safe travels back here. Let's get some folks in this arena, and wish you the best of luck these next few games.
Looking forward to it, and again, really thankful for everyone that's been out so far in the conference slate, like Jim had mentioned, and looking forward to having more and more and new people here in Jerry Richardson for these last few games in SoCon play.
Can't sum it up any better than that. For Dwight Perry, I'm Jim Noble. Thanks for watching Inside Wofford Basketball, brought to you by Yokohama, and we'll see you next time.